Hello, welcome. I'm Kvetoslav, and this is Historical Fiction with Kvetoslav. And recently, I was watching a video by my friend Derek Greene, who made a video about the film Blade Runner and how it was actually better than the book by Philip K. Dick called Do Andrews Dream of Electric Sheep. And that kind of inspired me to wonder about as to whether or not the English-speaking world is aware of where Philip K. Dick probably had his original inspiration there, which I believe was from a Czech author who went by the name of Karel Capek in the early 20th century. He was one of the first science fiction writers ever there, coming in the wake of people like Jules Verne and so on there. And he wrote a number of books, but he was most famous for his science fiction, very early science fiction. And the book that I believe that inspired Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep is actually a play called RUR, or Rossum's Universal Robots there, which was written around 1920 there. And it's actually quite a well-known play in this part of the world. Karel Capek is one of the most famous Czech authors there. He, and along with his brother Josef Capek, who was actually a children's author and wrote a number of books called Doggy and Catty, which are still read today there. He was something of a national author there. So he's extremely well known in this part of the world. And he was at one time well known in the English speaking world. So much so that his play, RUR, was almost immediately translated into English and into 30 different languages. And it was actually the first science fiction play that was ever performed on BBC Radio. So it was quite an influential work there. I'll talk a little bit about Capek himself and his work there. He wrote a number of things. He was also a reporter as well, but science fiction seemed to be his love. I don't have an actual physical copy of RUR in English there, but I do have it on my Kindle there. He passed away in 1937, so all of his work is in the public domain, and much of it has been translated to English, so it is available on a number of sites there if you're interested. But I just want to give a little bit of background to this play there, Rossum's Universal Robots there. It was a play. I'll show the kind of cast of characters there. Originally conceived as a play, also performed on the radio and on stage and so on there. And it actually was the first work of science fiction to introduce the concept of mechanical beings known as robots. And how do I know it was the first one to introduce robots? Well, because Karel Capek and his brother Josef Capek actually invented the word robot. They were the first people to ever use the word, and as a result, the word robot has entered the English language, and I think something like 90% of languages on Earth also use the word robot, which was originally a Czech word that entered into other languages there. So he actually invented the word, or his brother Josef actually invented it. Originally, when he was conceiving his play, he was going to use the word derived from Latin labori there, but he wasn't very satisfied with it, and his brother actually suggested this word robotnik, which is an old Czech word, which is actually derived from serfdom or serf labor. It was a word from Old Slavonic, but it had fallen out of usage there. And he felt that he kind of altered the word into robot and felt it would be a suitably exotic word to describe his mechanical creations. And interestingly, actual science eventually adapted the word robot to describe any kind of mechanical intelligence there. There are other examples of this from history where science fiction was adapted by actual science. For example, the word taser, many people don't know, was actually an acronym, and it stood for Tom A. Swift's electric rifle. Tom Swift was kind of an adventure character from British boys' novels, and he had a book where he invented a fictional kind of electric rifle. And the inventor of Taser was apparently a fan and decided to use that as an acronym for their invention. So but back to the idea of robots. Yes, robot is actually one of very few Czech words which have entered into the lexicon of other languages as a result of the Čapek brothers, and particularly this play, Rossum's Universal Robots. The play is excellent. I've read it in Czech and in English, and it translates very well. One of the things was that Čapek wanted to appeal not only to Czechs but also to an international audience. So the characters don't necessarily have Czech names; they've got kind of international names, and it's set up as a play there, with stage directions and so on. And it actually concerns a factory where these mechanical inventions called robots are invented, are manufactured in order to make life easier for humans. And it's set in a kind of generic future there, where these robots are mass produced, but they also kind of develop a sentient personality there. The robots themselves, he's not quite as clear as to whether or not they are electronic, but when you read it, they do seem to be more like androids there, because they do seem to have human features and so on. Some people have even suggested that they might be clones there. But the story itself is about kind of the sympathetic idea that these robots have developed sentience, and if they are suitable for they should be able to be treated as objects and served. I won't go too much into detail because the play is actually excellent, and it's got a lot of twists and turns and takes some it's a play, so it's not exactly as excited as say the Blade Runner or something, but it does explore the same kind of concepts there. And so it's a really, really excellent, well written. I found it's been translated many times, and it seems to translate very well. He actually said it in might be set in the US or Europe. It's very unclear. It's meant to be kind of any futuristic setting there. And beyond that, I won't go too much into detail because I'd really like people to read it, and you might be actually surprised at just how deep it goes for being the first actual work on artificial life, how prescient it is in kind of predicting the development of artificial intelligence and the the moral implications. Which basically went on to inspire Blade Runner and Terminator and all of these other, basically the entire genre of science fiction started here with Karel Capek and his robots there. Capek was really a fantastic, interesting individual there. His later career in the 1930s was less taken up with writing as he shifted to being more of a reporter, because he was a very outspoken opponent of both National Socialism, Nazism, and communism there. And he was actually considered something like public enemy number 2 by the Nazi regime. And when Czechoslovakia was betrayed and invaded by the Germans, he was on the top of the Gestapo's hit list, and they went to try to arrest him and send him to a concentration camp. But he actually outsmarted them. His wife kind of famously, when the Gestapo arrived at his home, said, he's gone where you'll never be able to catch him, because he had actually passed away 2 months before the Nazis came to arrest him there. So he got kind of a final last laugh. But I highly recommend Karel Capek and RUR, really the original sci-fi for robots.